Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tuesday evening with B'nai Baruch. As you know, we're carrying on with Tuesday lessons as usual. Last weekend we had the Congress, so I really hope you guys had an opportunity to join the Congress and get a good vibe from it. It was an intense 4 days, starting Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Well, 3 intense days, really. So I think we got a lot out of it. And this week, what I wanted to do was just to touch base with one of the topics that we went over. And that topic is they helped everyone, his friend. So how everybody can actually help each other to advance in spirituality. That's the topic for tonight. And like I said, it's one of the topics from the Congress. Now, as you know, the lessons that we've got here on every Tuesday night is not for beginners. So if you're a beginner, if you'd like to learn the wisdom of Kabbalah, you can definitely go and visit Kabbalah.info. And from there, you'll see a link to CAB-U, which is our academy for studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. And you're more than welcome to join in with like-minded people and study this really amazing wisdom from authentic sources, including the Tree of Life, Zohar, and obviously Baal HaSulam and Rabash's great articles that are really helping all of us to move forward on the path. So without any further overdue, let's get started and see what these selected excerpts can give us on the path. Now, obviously, if you are part of 10, this will be a lesson where you can actually take a lot of stuff, where you can apply it in your group. If you're not inside a study group or an environment, and then still good to learn, because if you ever decide to study with the friends where you can apply these things, it's some handy information. So as usual, we're going to study from the excerpts of Baal HaSulam and Rabash, and we'll try to take from them as much as we can. So here we are on the first excerpt, and also if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. And also you probably have a link for these excerpts on YouTube or on your email if you're registered on the email. So let's start reading. Baal HaSulam, this is from his letter number 47. Let me remind you the validity of love of friends in spite of everything at this time. For it is upon this that our right to exist depends, and upon this our near to come success is measured. Hence, turn away from all the imaginary engagements and set your hearts on thinking thoughts and devising proper tactics to truly connect your hearts as one. So the words, love your friend as yourself, will literally come true in you. For a verse does not reach beyond the literal, and you will be cleaned by the thought of love that will cover all crimes. Test me in that and begin to truly connect in love, and then you will see the palate will taste. Right, so Baal HaSulam wrote this in the previous century, so probably way before in the first half of the century, probably last century. And he's touching on a base that's very, very important, a fundamental principle. In reality, everything is connected. Okay, so the still, vegetative, animate, human, we're all connected to this system that we call life or reality or universe or creation, doesn't matter what we call it. At the end of the day, we're all connected in one way or another, and we can't really exist without the other parts. So without the still, vegetative, and the animate, we won't be able to exist either. So all of us are an integral part of this life. So what do we need to take on from this? Why is he putting into our study all of a sudden this principle, telling us, reminding us actually the validity of love of friends? Because love is actually called connection. So when we think about love, we shouldn't be thinking about some kind of Hollywood romantic movie or something. Love means to have a connectedness, a connection, harmony, balance, peace, right? Tranquility. All these things are actually words that describe love. So love has come, love is a word it's a 4-letter word, and you can see how many books, poems, songs, and movies they've made about it. And they're all completely egoistic. So the way we need to really relate to this word love is actually achieving balance and harmony in nature, actually reconciling our nature and bring it to balance with the laws of nature. So that's what really love of friends mean, to come to a balanced relationship among all of us. And if we fail to do so, which we're witnessing in the 21st century, as you can see very clearly, humanity will go through many turmoils and much suffering. Also society-wise too. Already as humanity, we've gone through thousands of years of war, brutal sufferings all around the world. Even in the previous century, we've witnessed and we went through so many wars: First World War, Second World War, Korean War, Vietnam War, First Gulf, Second Gulf. Just war after one after the other. So there's really no stopping humanity's suffering, because our nature is rather out of balance. So unless we get back to balance, we're never going to have a peaceful, decent life. Also, even if we're not in war, and like some countries are not in war, we're witnessing a lot of violence, right? Like in Western countries, in countries like European Union, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the US. Even though they're Western countries, they consider themselves rather civilized. We can see that there's growing violence in the family, on the streets, all over. Why? Because humanity is just, it's out of options on how to live better. And because we can't see a bright future, people have just, given up on life. So we're going into a society, a global society, where depression, drugs, and all that kind of thing is really overwhelming, because we just want to disconnect from life. We just can't handle life anymore. And this is why we're getting a lot of, disconnection in families, between people, and so on. So we can't really balance ourselves, and we need to balance ourselves. And this can only be achieved by people coming together to connect properly. All right. So it's not just people it's not just people coming together. It has to be directed in a certain way. It has to be directed towards achieving this balance and harmony. And this will also bring us actually a really, really pleasant, good life. So all of us should actually be thinking about how we can better ourselves, so that we can balance ourselves with nature, and accordingly have a much peaceful life. The way to start doing it is, if you're studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, it's called a group. And in that group, we learn human nature, and we learn the laws of general nature, and we balance them out. We kind of reconcile them, because our human nature has a destructive aspect to it called egoism. And nature has a balance side to it. So it's all balanced in nature. But animals and the plants and the still level, they're all instinctively kind of like programmed to be balanced. So they don't really make mistakes unless an animal is sick, it won't make a mistake. It will be in balance with nature. A human, on the other hand, has to bring him or herself to balance. And the reason they have to do that is so that they can attain a higher level of consciousness, which is actually also the purpose of life. Sometimes we call this reaching the same level as the Creator, or sometimes you can say adhesion with the Creator, or equivalence of form with the Creator, or with nature. Okay, so God, nature, one force, light, doesn't matter what you really call it. At the end of the day, humanity has a purpose to its creation, and that purpose must be achieved. And unless we achieve it, we're just going to get shoved and pushed into it through suffering. And as you can see, globally, we're going through a collective suffering now, and that collective suffering will go more and more forward, starting with the COVID-19. The viruses will not end, all right? Think of it this way. Until you learn a lesson, the lesson continues. So until humanity learns, the shoving and the pushing from the side of nature will continue in terms of other things as well, such as natural disasters like earthquakes, floods, all kinds of things we might be going through actually. We might be going through a lot of stuff in terms of suffering from natural disasters in 2022. So if you're in the flood zone anywhere, be very careful. All right. So the only way for humanity, actually, not just us studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, but the only way for humanity to move forward is to actually balance ourselves in our relationships. Now let's go on to excerpt number 2. Is there a question at the moment? No, right? There is. Okay, let's take a look at the questions. Okay, so David's asking, what are imaginary engagements? Well, you know, all kinds of stuff that are really not related to our existence or our spiritual advancement. So I don't know, you know, for example, I don't know how much you would call, I don't want to give an example, to be honest. All right. I don't want to give an example, but for example, we engage in a lot of childish things, right, as grown-ups. For example, I don't know, I don't have one, but if I had a PlayStation at my age, I've got friends at my age who play PlayStation, right? They play video games and they're my age. So I think that's imaginary, okay? I think that's wasting life, okay? According to them, they're having fun. So this is why I don't want to say anything bad, but you know, as humans, we have to look at our lives and think, you know, like, why am I living? I'm gonna, you know, God knows when I'm gonna die. It could be the next second, you know, I don't know. And look at the things we're dealing with in life and evaluate and think for a moment. What am I doing? Look at all the things we've invented just to get out of this life, just to kind of take a break, snap out of it, or, you know, take us to somewhere else except this reality. We've come up with football, basketball, I don't know, baseball, tennis, table tennis, all kinds of things, right? Volleyball, this ball, that ball. We are engaging ourselves in so much irrelevant things that are so not, it's just, it doesn't add any value to us at all. Imagine all these things we've invented just to close our eyes to this reality, because we're really suffering from it. And so all of these things are just imaginary dealings. And I think people soon will have had enough of a lot of things. We'll see that this virus will give us a sensation that we just don't want to do anything. Just can't be bothered. Don't want it, don't need it, not interested. We're just going to get into this mood. And it's really warming us up to that. So anything really that's not necessary for our existence and not necessary for our spiritual development is just wasting our lives away. Is it possible to love in this world? Well, we have to. Forget the possibility. This is something we need to do. But think of love, like I said, as coming to balance with the laws of nature. So I don't want to use the word love a lot. I'm just using it because Baal Islam used it. So this is why I wanted to expand on it a little bit and connect it with harmony, balance, you know, having a peaceful life, a tranquil life, because love is really taken out of context in our world. And there are all kinds of, you know, funny ways people look at it and interpret it. But actually, we're talking about balancing ourselves, having a life where we're feeling the tranquility of life rather than the stress of life. So it's something we have to do. There's no getting away from it. There's no running away from it either. I know a lot of people want to run away from it. Everybody wants to take drugs, antidepressants, and all kinds of things to put their heads to sleep. But we just have to understand, actually, you can't really even break away from this life if you die. There are a lot of suicides in the world right now. And I think the third biggest death rate in the US is suicide in teenagers. And when I say teenagers, it's not even teenagers, it's children and teenagers. Even children are committing suicide. It's like really shocking. And these were like figures from 2012, 2013. So, we just want to disconnect ourselves from life. But even that is really not going to help us out. And I'll tell you why. We're living in a closed system. So even a person's death cannot be an escape from the system. You can't escape from the system. So this is something that we must do and we have to do. Isoke is asking, what practical actions can we take to organize the 10 in order to do the work, or is organizing the 10 part of the work? Well, organizing the 10 is called a framework. So if I'm working in a 10, which is good, so I'm glad you got a 10. So when you're working in a 10, first of all, you must have a framework for the work. So that's like the lessons, and connecting with the friends during the day. If you have a responsibility in the group, that would be great. If you're engaging in helping other people's spirituality, if you've got some responsibility there, that's also great. The reason these things are good is because when you want to help other people and you're helping them for their spiritual advancement, it gives you the opportunity to kind of stop worrying about yourself, stop thinking about yourself. And by doing that on a constant, regular beat, regular kind of rhythm, you begin to get used to the idea of thinking of others. Now, when you begin to think of others, you begin to think of yourself less and less. And to an ordinary person on the street, that might sound like crazy. Well, why would I want to think about myself less? Well, the reason you have a lot of problems is because you're constantly thinking about yourself. So the only way to overcome life's problems for yourself is actually to think of other people. And that's completely contradictory to our logic. It's completely contradictory to the way we think and we believe that things are. Because we think that the more I think about myself, the more I'll be able to succeed, do things, do what I want to do and get what I want to do. But that's completely wrong. We need society to bring out the best of, what's in us. In order to bring out the best of us, bring it out, I have to utilize myself with the attribute of bestowal. So organizing ourselves in the 10 where we can help others is the best way to move forward. And for you to do that, the organization should be like when you guys have this common working routine. So like I said, coming to the morning lessons, disseminations, responsibility in the group, and so on. So organizing yourselves is part of the work, and applying what we learn in the group is also the application of what we're learning. Good. So let's go forward to item number 2. This is from Bala Slums, letter number 10. Do what you can, and the salvation of the Lord is as the blink of an eye. The most important thing before you today is the unity of friends. Exert in that more and more, for it can recompense for all the faults. So let's read that once again. Do what you can, and the salvation of the Lord is as the blink of an eye. The most important thing before you today is the unity of friends. Exert in that more and more, for it can recompense for all the faults. So all we have to do really is one thing. Now, sometimes people say, oh, the wisdom of Kabbalah is so hard. You got to learn all these books and stuff. Well, actually, you just have to learn one thing, and that's wanting to connect with the friends, all right, wanting to come to unity with the friends. So we just actually basically, everything we do is to develop a desire towards coming to that mutual connection with other people, because we're so swamped up in our egotistic desire. What really happens is we don't feel anybody else outside of us. So a person is really, caged up in this body, is actually like a real prisoner in this body, trying to make a good life for him or herself, when this is actually not possible to do. The only way to have a good life, which is actually called salvation, really, the only way that a person can have salvation is to actually get out of oneself. Because all our suffering and problems is because we're stuck in this way of life. So the more we work towards the unity between the friends, the more we're actually giving ourselves the chance of breaking free. Okay. So another question from David: how can we help our friends if we are the lowest? What could we possibly offer them? Well, precisely at that point, actually, you can do much more. The lowest point actually is where you want to get to, because feeling low doesn't mean I'm, incompetent or stupid or can't do anything. Everybody in the world has something that they have which nobody else has, and they can contribute to society, to humanity, actually. So all of us, despite the fact that we might feel, incompetent or low, or not being able to do anything, or not wanting to do anything, okay, we might be really talented, but we might just not have any desire to move. So all these things, all these states, we all go through, and God knows I've been through a lot of them myself as well. It's part of the way. I think the only way that we can all help each other is by showing the friends that we're doing our best. Being a good example to all the friends is the best way to help others. So I'd recommend, sticking your head in the 10, showing them you're trying, and tell them you're trying as well. Tell them that you're trying your best, and this is what you can do. And that way, that already gives a lot of people a lot of inspiration. Even wording it out to the friends. I mean, what have I got to hide from the friends anyway? I stick my head in there. I tell them, listen, guys, I'm trying my best, and I do my best. Really show them that I'm doing my best. That's already going to charge them up. So all of us can do very small things. It doesn't have to be huge, everyone puts, a little bit in there, and all of a sudden, we've got a jackpot. So I think everybody just needs to do a little bit. Nothing extraordinary. Question from Francesco: how can I constantly be connected with the 10 even when we're not in the society? Well, if you're not in the society, then you can't. Okay, because it's like this. You're asking me like this: how can I feel connected to the family if I don't have a family? Okay, so it's not going to really work out. What we have to do is, if you're not in a group, right? If you're not in a group, what you can do, or if you can't be in a group, or if you're not in a group, or if you're not allocated to a group, let's say you're a CABU student and you don't have a 10 yet, what you can do is think about the whole group. Okay, think about their advancement. Think about, like thinking about others and their benefit is also helping them. Our thoughts are quite powerful. Our thoughts change the world, not our actions. Because through the thoughts, we make actions. So it's all really in the thought. So if you don't have a 10 or a group or a society, you can study and think about the well-being of, the group of people who do study. Okay, that's also fine. But it's preferable if you get into a group, because then you can focus. can be more focused on the work. You can then say, this is my 10, I'm working with them, I'm going. And the advantage of that is because you can measure it. Yeah, because if you've got a group in front of you, you can get feedback from that group. And that feedback is important because then you can start to calculate where you need to add, where you need to subtract, and all this kind of stuff. That kind of makes the work really focused if you can get your self-organized in a group. Patricia's asking, who would my 10 bestow to if I don't receive? Who would my 10 bestow to if I don't receive? Well, look, all of us, let's think of it this way, right? Let's think of ourselves from micro towards macro. So you've got a 10, right, Patricia? Let's hope you got a 10. So what's your purpose, right? Your purpose is to come to the purpose of life. And the purpose of life is to connect or to reach adhesion with the Creator while living in this world. Okay, so that's the thing. So you have an objective, and that's where you want to get to. So in order for you to get there, you have to have equivalence of form, which means to bestow like the Creator. So what you have to do is think to yourself, well, if I want to come to the perception of the Creator, if I want to attain a higher level of perception called being like the Creator, then I've got to kind of get out of my skin and attain this new attribute called bestowal. And if I can attain that new attribute of bestowal, then I will have a new perception of reality. I'll have a new way to exist, a different perspective of existence. So what really matters here is how much am I contributing? How much am I bestowing to my 10? That is the question. Now, if you bestow to your 10, then what happens is, because we're living in the laws of nature, whatever I do, I will get an equal opposite reaction, right? So if I'm trying to bestow more and more, then I'm going to get from the group feedback where I can actually make adjustments to myself, where I can actually perfect myself, where I can actually learn more on how to bestow, where I can actually start to think about what I need to do with my desire to receive, how to handle it, how to treat it. So all these kind of things are going to be popping up inside of me due to the feedback. So what a person should really be focused on if they have a 10 is how I can bestow, not how much the friends can bestow and what I can get from them, but what I can do. Because at the end of the day, I'm trying to change myself. That's what spirituality is. If I focus on that, that will be a correct work. If you focus on, what's my 10 going to bestow to, it's going to be an opposite. It's going to be not going to be the correct work, because what I want to do with the 10 is, according to my bestowal, get feedback so that I can make personal adjustments. Okay, so that's how the system should work. And if I work in bestowal towards them in the group, if I'm studying with them, working with them, applying what I'm learning with them in the group, then the 10 is already bestowing to me. I'm already getting all the feedback. At the end of the day, what do I want to get from the 10? I want to get from the 10 impressions on bestowal. So that's only going to happen as much as I stick my head in there. If I don't stick my head in there, there's nothing to talk about. Soke is asking again, how to synchronize our actions towards helping the friends without inserting or being led by egoism? Well, until we reach spirituality, we are led by egoism, right? We're egoistically wanting to bestow, let's say. Okay? We're all egoists. We understand we're egoists, but we also have a dot in the heart, the point in the heart. That's really important, because that point in the heart is standing against my egoism, and I'm kind of like stuck in between the two, right? So I'm kind of going like it's like playing ping pong, table tennis. I'm like that ball going back and forth between those 2 points. So what I really want to do is, through the study, I understand I'm egoistic. And as I work more and more in the group, even though we don't know what bestowal is, I come to the understanding that I don't want to be an egoist. So the study should really bring me to really recognizing myself, realizing who I am, what I am. And if I understand that, what I am, who I am, then I can begin to see how egoism is causing damage to me. And then I can want to free myself from it. So initially, obviously, we're not doing it in a bestowing way. It's all through egoism, but through the ego, we come to recognize the evil of egoism, and through that, we will disagree with that nature. And from that, we can actually build bestowal, which is going to be the opposite of egoism. So through 2 opposite points, we perceive reality like day and night. Same thing will apply here. Okay. Isoke is asking again, how much of our personality is egoistic? And are we annulling our personalities? Well, we're completely egoistic. Every cell in our body, our whole nature is egoistic. At the end of the day, there's no really other nature that we have. We're a desire to receive that works in an egoistic way. That's our nature. So we're 100% egoists. And are we annulling our personalities? We're just annulling our egoism. Our personality is not something you can annul. We're already born with it. We're also a desire to receive. We can't annul that either. We can't get rid of it. What we're actually trying to do here is to use the desire to receive in a loving way, in a way that it benefits other people rather than causes harm. Right now, we're always using our desire to receive to benefit ourselves, and this brings harm to other people. This is why we're destroying the world, right? It brings harm. It brings harm to society, to other people, to the family, to the animate, vegetative, still levels as well. Our egoistic nature is destroying and wrecking everything. So what we have to do is learn how to use it in such a way that it doesn't wreck lives, but it benefits lives. Another question from Patricia. Don't I have to receive in order to bestow? Yes, but aren't you already receiving? If you have a dot in the heart, which you received, and that wants to get to the purpose of life, and you've also received, I don't know, the method, you're studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, you are probably, if you're not in a group, you can be in a group if you join the CABU environment. So you already have everything. We've got the Rav who's teaching us. We've got the books. We've got the friends who can help us out when we're learning. So you bring all these things together and you already have fountain where you can really drink from. So how are you going to use all these materials now to grow from? We're actually always receiving. Because every day we're studying and we're receiving knowledge, information, desire, aspiration, I don't know, all kinds of things that can allow us to move forward. The question is, how am I using what I'm receiving? David's asking, what happens if 2 lesbians are in a 10 and they fall in love and get married? Well, good luck. What's bad with that? The wisdom of Kabbalah does not deal with our sex lives or our animate level of existence. The wisdom of Kabbalah deals with how we can build a soul and come to the purpose of creation, which is to live in a higher level of existence or perception called adhesion with the Creator. That's all. So whether a person is gay or lesbian or whatever, it doesn't really matter. The wisdom of Kabbalah doesn't deal with this stuff. Also, this is an animate level thing. Like animals also have families. Animals have a sex life as well, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's also in the animate life, there are also gay relationships as well among animals. So this isn't something crazy or unnatural. This exists in nature. How it's all going to get settled up is really not the concern of the wisdom of Kabbalah. What is the concern of the wisdom of Kabbalah is how we can attain a higher level of existence. So it's a good question, but the wisdom of Kabbalah doesn't deal with it. Should they go to different tens, or they can stay together in the same ten? Well, look, that's a matter for, I don't know, for the group to decide. They should also think about it too. Are they able to relate to all the other friends equally? Or are they more, or not? So all these things you've got to, take into consideration. But like I said, I don't think it's a big deal. Kevin's asking, what is the spiritual ego? Well, spiritual ego, we're not there yet. Spiritual ego is the real ego. And that's when we really want to abuse and use the Creator. In this world, which is called corporeality, we have corporeal egoism. So in corporeality, we use other people for our benefits in order to fulfill ourselves. In spirituality, we want to use the Creator to fulfill ourselves. There's a huge level of egoism there. But we'll get there. And until we get there, let's read a little bit more. So we are on item number 3, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so letter number 47, excerpt number 3. I have established for you conducts by which you can still hang on and not turn back. And the single most special one among them is adhesion of friends. I sincerely promise that this love is able, and I shall remind you of every good thing that you need. And if you nonetheless braced yourselves in that, you would certainly go from strength to strength on the rungs of holiness. So once again, it's amazing how many excerpts they've written about this, how the connection between people is the only way to exalt ourselves in spirituality. When it's talking about strengthening ourselves on the rungs of holiness, obviously it's talking about ascending spiritually, ascending in levels of bestowal and mutual connection of love between people. But like I said, that word love can be a bit of an ew kind of word among people. But we need to understand that this is harmony, balance that we need to maintain in humanity to have a decent life, to have a good life. And in fact, a lot of people who don't care about spirituality at all, they have a concern about how they can be happy. And this is actually it's the same formula. There's only one way to be happy, and that's having good relationships with people. In corporeality, it's the same thing as well. If we think about when was the last time we had a good time, we generally remember, our connection, our moments where we had a good time with friends and family and so on. So really, it looks like in spirituality, we're always talking about it, but in fact, in reality as well, if you're around people that you care about and they care about you, those are the best moments you have in life. So this is really how the world turns, The world is turning on this principle called connectedness, connections, good connections, obviously. question from P. Green. You mentioned the point in the heart is the Mashiach. Is the point in the heart the starting point for the Mashiach, but the surrounding light is the full Mashiach? Well, look, the dot in the heart is the beginning. It's when they call, the Messiah came. You've probably heard of that saying, right? The Messiah is coming. Well, if the Messiah is coming, what it means is your point in the heart has awoken, and it's asking the question, what's the meaning of my life? Asking the question is not enough, because the Messiah comes from the word in Hebrew, Mashiach, limshoch. Mashiach is pulling. Limshoch is the verb to pull. So the dot in the heart, when it awakens, it wants to pull you towards spirituality. It wants to get you out of the rat race. But that's not enough. In order for it to be a powerful force to pull you out, you got to grow it. You got to make something out of it. Just like you got to, raise a baby and make it strong enough so that it can, look after itself and be independent in life. So that's the same thing what we have to do with the dot in the heart, the point in the heart. So it's a pulling force, but it needs to be fed, needs to be nurtured, taken care of until it becomes a strong enough desire to get us out of all the egoistical dealings that we have in life. And the second part of the question is the point in the heart the starting point for the Messiah, but the surrounding light is the full Mashiach? It is the starting point, but the full Mashiach is when it actually takes me out of my egoism. It's that force which takes me out. So it has a beginning point, and it has a point where it gets the job done. And in fact, the point where it gets the job done is when it gets you out of Egypt, and it gives you the ability to be above all your desires, so that you never use them egoistically again. That's called the job of the Messiah. It's also called the work of Moses. When Moses gets the people of Israel out of Egypt, so I'm taking all of my desires to receive egoistically out of Egypt. So I'm taking them out of egoism, and then I'm taking them to the desert for 40 years. So that means I'm actually evaluating all my desires, and I'm raising myself above all my desires to receive, completing that period called 40 years in the desert, where I'm bringing myself above all my desire to receive. And then that's where Moses dies, right? And the rest of the people go into the land of Israel. So Moses does his job by actually getting the people out of Egypt and elevating them above all their egoistic desires. Okay, good. Let's carry on. We're on item number 4. This is from letter number 11. I will also ask that you make great efforts in love of friends, to devise tactics that can increase the love among the friends and revoke the lust for bodily matters from among you, as this is what casts hate. And between those who give contentment to their Maker, there shall be no hatred. Rather, there are great compassion and love between them. So once again, is underlining the fact that we have to come up with ways. So if I'm studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, it's not just enough for me to study and learn. I have to think about how I can apply what I've learned so that it will create love in the friends. So I have to keep working on that. So this is why we call it constant work. So we're constantly working, trying to find ways where we can apply what we've learned. How can I help the friends in a caring, in a loving way, so that they can actually move forward in spirituality and we can all raise ourselves? And by doing so, actually, this is how we come to love. Because the more I'm acting towards others with love and bestowal, I'm actually growing my love towards them. So the more I care about other people, I actually begin to love them more. Why? Because I'm investing in them. So this work of investing in others allows me to care for them, love them, think about them. And this is actually the trick to getting out of yourself. And getting out of yourself means I'm bringing myself to a place where I stop thinking about myself. And like I said before, it sounds weird to a lot of people who are on the outside, but to a student of Kabbalah, it's really logical, because at the end of the day, I'm feeling entrapped in this body, and I'm trapped because I'm constantly thinking about myself, my own benefit. But the only way to kind of get out of this vicious cycle is to find a way to think of others. And that's what the group allows me to do. I can just think of somebody else, and that will actually get you out of yourself. And that switch is the difference between feeling entrapped in this world and freedom. Okay. So we've got another question from P. Green. Could we say the surrounding light is part of the process of the Mashiach? Well, the surrounding light is actually the Creator's influence on us. The dot in the heart is also from the Creator. So I'm kind of, like I said before, I'm kind of like the guy in between states. The dot in the heart is from the Creator. I was created as a desire to receive egoistically. That's also from the Creator. Just like everything is from the Creator. And I'm just going through life, okay? Just like we go through life here. If you think about it, it's the same thing. So we're not born according to our desire. You know, we just end up born. We don't know whose children we're going to be. We don't know what country, what culture, nothing, right? We don't decide on anything. We're just born. And from what we're born, we try to make the best of life as we grow up and as our parents raise us, right? So if you think about it, that's how it is. So a person doesn't really have anything that belongs to him. He's not there making the choices. He's like given the scenario that he needs to go through. But how he's going to go through that is his work. So, like I said, the dot in the heart, the Messiah, the surrounding light, all of those are kind of outside of us. We as the individual need to, through the study, through the learning, need to kind of build inside of us the path. How do I need to do things? What do I need to do? How am I going to go forward, move forward, and build my path? So that belongs to the person, and that's called effort. Because we don't know what spirituality is. But through the study, through the work, we begin to understand what egoism is, because we're egoists. And from that, I can begin to want to change. So all these states that you're talking about here, the Messiah, the surrounding light, these are not really things that belong to the individual. These are like given conditions. Life gives us conditions.